Today, I'm curious about a very practical question. What does it take to make artificial intelligence actually walk? Not as a metaphor, but quite literally. My guest is Robert MacKenzie, a seasoned technology executive who most recently served as Chief Product Officer at ANYbotics, the Swiss robotics company behind ANYmal, an autonomous four-legged inspection robot deployed in heavy industries around the globe. We'll explore what it means to bring AI into the real world, from human-robot interaction to trust, from scaling teams to scaling intelligence.
This is AI Talk with Stefan Lendy.
Welcome to all of you, and welcome Robert MacKenzie.
Thank you, Stefan. I worked to bring my best podcast voice today.
Well, you sound wonderful already. And also, thank you for joining us, Dalith Steiger-Gablinger, co-founder at Swiss Cognitive, the global AI hub, joining as co-host for Reflections and Insights. Dalith, great to see you.
Thanks a lot. I actually hear you, can't see you, but I'm looking very much forward to the discussion.
Good. So, Robert, help us understand, what does ANYbotics, those that don't know the company, what is it you do, and what especially is unique about ANYmal?
So ANYbotics is a Swiss-based company and has a mission to create a workforce of autonomous robots. So workforce is a key word. And of course, robots are not new, but the autonomous aspect is quite new. And as a purpose-driven leader, I just love the idea of, in some way, shifting society so that robots could work and walk amongst us. So ANYbotics' expertise lies, as you said in the introduction, in the area of creating four-legged robots. And they are integrated with many and various sensors. And on top of that, and that was mostly then more part of my main job and responsibility, was to integrate and impart various forms of intelligence onto the robot. And then this robot is called ANYmal. Four-legged robots are great for carrying payloads, and then these intelligence is further augmented with applications for use cases in the industrial settings you mentioned, so classical industries like chemical, mining, metals, energy ranging from oils to natural gas and renewable energies. And then by creating this mobile sensing powerhouse, then ANYmal will then walk through these facilities, collect data at various points, in between all points as well, making it easier for these industries to basically digitize in a way that was never possible before.
Give us some very specific examples of where, in what industries those robots have been deployed. So just two or three very, very specific use cases to make this more tangible for us that don't know ANYbotics yet.
So gladly, so maybe one Swiss example would be a company called DMS Firmenich. So that's a chemical-based company, not so far outside of Zurich, between Zurich and Basel. And there, the robot runs daily inspection routines to measure various things in the facility. And that includes also walking up multiple flights, like hundreds and hundreds of metal staircases in industrial cases, stopping at various gauges, measuring gas temperatures along the way, measuring temperatures at various places, digitizing the entire environment again and again, so that this facility gains a more holistic data set to understand how well it's operating or not operating, what needs to be optimized.
So, Dalith, when we talk about AI, we often think of algorithms, we think of large language models, but this to me is like, it's like AI with legs, and that kind of changes everything. When did you first hear about ANYbotics?
Well, I had the privilege to get to know them very early, and they were awarded for the Digital Economy Award here in Switzerland, where I was sitting in the jury.
So what a spectacular company. So what are they to you? Where do you see potential of this company, and what does it mean for you to see this innovation and these changes coming from Switzerland?
To me, again, Switzerland is very keen in quality, in engineering, in technology, bringing our human brains together, leveraging it with the technology, especially cognitive technology, is what gives us the right to be here, to be an AI boutique, to be in the forefront of this wave. And to me, ANYbotics shows how good we were able to, again, out of the universities of the ETH of this country, to bring the best people out, and they did a great job. This is something how we can do export by sending all these robots all over the globe. and to support the economy out there.
I remember when I was an 8-year-old boy, Robert, I was walking through the ETH Zurich Robotics Institute, and they had a post robot that was distributing mail. So that was their mail distribution robot. And I remember I was really, really impressed by what the robot was doing, what the abilities were. And nowadays, I think it has become often the question where we go, so who is in charge now? Is it robots? Is it humans? And there's a lack of trust often in the abilities of robots. How can we build trust from humans towards the machines? What does it take for that?
Well, it's glad to hear your fascination, first of all. And I think robots are still very fascinating. I think humans are still very much in control and hopefully always will be for a very long time. To your question of trust, so in the end, there's various elements I think we tried to bring together at ANYbotics. One is just making the interaction with the robot itself work and feel more and more seamless. Robots in many ways are still very complex devices, so their missions and how you set them up and how you train them, these co-workers, to do their work, still takes some time, like a human being does. But making that with less barriers is quite important. Safety measures as well, like obstacle avoidance, right? That the robot stops in front of things or is able to dynamically, in some predictable way, right, choose its path or change its path so the human can react or anticipate that, are quite important. I think giving the feeling to humans that these robots are also built for human environments, right? There are warehouses like for Amazon and whatnot for delivery, where that those places are no longer built for humans, and that feels quite strange for us. And at least ANYmal is something that feels quite natural on people. We've seen that again and again. And I think in the end, right, one of the elements beyond interaction is also performance, right? That it just does its job, and you feel that okay, once it's trained, wow, this can do something. This brings me value, and I understand the value it's bringing to me. I think those things and more are part of the mix of making something be trusted.
So I love how you're saying the first aspect is really a very pragmatic one. Robots do not pose a security risk, a safety risk for human beings because they move around the same environments. So there could be pitfalls to this, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think on one hand, like anything in any environment that's new is in some way a safety risk, but managing that risk, right, as long as you have the right guidance and rule sets, dare I say standards, and trustworthy companies comply with those and they build a quality product, then you mitigate those risks that are naturally there, and then it's of course less of a problem.
How do you train robots to work with humans, and how do you actually train humans to work alongside those robots?
Yeah, so I think it maybe almost starts with the latter, right? Training the humans, because it is a new tool, like whether it's just the robot or the AI-enabled robot, which is kind of the next level. It's them choosing to have the willingness to want to embrace this new type of tool and technology. I think once they've gone through that mental barrier and they've just started the initial interaction with the robot, we've seen time and time again with ANYmal, that they didn't see this as a threat, right? They were actually excited about this coworker who was going to come and potentially do parts of the job they never wanted to do anyway, right? Taking the human out of the dangerous, the dirty, and the dull. And I think this is another part that's led to the acceptance. Other than that,
is Rob? Let me just jump in here. Is it really only opportunities they see? Is it only the excitement, or is it also is that going to do away with my colleagues' jobs? Is there no risk awareness? Are there no questions? Are there no fears that you're seeing with the different workforces?
So I think it depends on the type of market segment or society that you're trying to deal with, right? So I think when we eventually become to the grander topic of AI, I think it definitely will begin to replace more and more. In industry right now, at least in Europe and North America, we have a problem that these companies aren't even able to hire people to do certain jobs. So you right now have an aging and even shrinking workforce trying to keep these industries running, and that's quite stressful, right? So any help that comes their way, they're really happy. So it's less about maybe replacing a full job, but it's replacing or giving them a new option to do work that it's anyway stressful to do nowadays. So it really depends on which use case you're targeting, and I think that triggers different fears amongst those people in those situations.
Does the look of your robots actually have an effect? We read a lot, and statistics say that as human beings, we are more afraid of robots that look like humans, and your robots look like animals, look cute in a way.
Yeah, so that's not completely by accident. In fact, I still become quite excited when people call it a robot dog, and I say, "No, it's so much more intelligent." Not to talk about dogs' intelligence, who are also very intelligent, but no. I think the fact that it's a little bit like human evolution, right? With farm-like animals, whether it's the ox or the horse, these are companions. That help us and augment us in a way that doesn't feel threatening to us in many cases, and ANYmal has definitely, I think, tapped into those types of emotions and acceptance in the humans we interact with, or people we interact with.
And this, Dalith, I'm really, really looking forward to your perspective on this. We can see that AI here, it is about more than technology. It's about designing relationships ultimately, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I'm totally with you, Robert. I think if we're trying to imitate the human being or even also ANYmal, then somehow we do also expectation management. And I think it's much better to have robots that are not humanized. So the expectation management is easier to deal with, especially when we think what we discussed now with regards to the lack of workforce. I mean, these days, when we talk about people that are afraid they're losing their jobs, well, there are a lot of projects and a lot of things that we won't be able to finalize, won't be able to do because we're just lacking behind the talents. So we have to accelerate them. We have to augment them. And the other thing is really if they're being in dangerous circumstances. So to me, it is really the relationship between the technology and the human being to do things together, to have a mutual understanding and to leverage the future.
Yeah, maybe one fun fact that I can just jump in is, for all of human history, at least to our knowledge, right, the human form is the only one that's been able to achieve our level of intelligence. So we often think, right, that humanoids, that form factor, right, we build robots, that they're also going to be more intelligent and superior. The funny thing is that something like ANYmal can actually carry much more computing power than other shapes or forms of robots too. So it's come up for the first time in maybe our natural progression or evolution, right? We could create a different shape of a thing that is just as intelligent or more intelligent than a humanoid form, just in the form of a robot.
I think we now better understand ANYbotics. As the former CPO and CTO of ANYbotics, I also want to tap into your experience when we're talking about leading companies, about leading work environments through complexity. What are some of the leadership principles that you have followed that you have seen work very well in high growth, in AI-driven organizations?
So great. Leadership, I love it. Robots AI leadership, this is the most amazing podcast I've done in a long time. Thank you. So I think, some of the principles here is, balancing discovery with delivery. There's just a lot of unknown in a company like ANYbotics or other AI companies. There's so much to learn. And if you don't ingrain that into how you do things, and you risk overemphasizing one or the other or falling behind on one or the other. Another aspect that I think is personal to me is this idea of co-elevation. So consciously doing work and planning things in a way that raises people up and raises systems up, by making sure that you're committed to making things around you better as you're achieving goals together. An important element of that for me and my leadership style is also psychological safety, meaning that people can basically express their opinions, questions, and concerns openly without fear of negative reactions. And I think this is inherent to this ability to learn as a group of people and growing complex organization to overcome the various phases of discovery and apply that to better and better delivery. Clear and focused goals, right? One of my favorite methods is OKRs. And I absolutely am a lover of real education. It's not just sharing information, but creating knowledge amongst a complex organization, right? Like, how do you plan? How do you set and align goals? when it comes to AI nowadays, like automation mentality first, right? How can I use AI for that? I think should become a key skill that all organizations should be training their teams, and other elements like high velocity decision making. How do you ingrain systematic yet distributed decision making throughout the organization? One of those ways is also doing things where you create no bottlenecks. So maybe just to pause there, those are some of the elements that I could talk for hours on about leadership.
If we're talking about AI and robotics, what lies ahead? What are some of the next AI breakthroughs on the horizon from your perspective?
Well, right now it's happening so fast, and it's exciting. So there's going to be a lot coming. But I think maybe even before the breakthroughs is a reminder that there's going to be quite a lot of aches and pains, right, along the way between all these amazing sort of marketing-like videos showing what robots can do. But let's stay on the exciting, positive side here. So I think one of the next things we're going to see, not only in ANYmal, but in other robots, is this idea of embodied AI, right? Giving something true autonomy. And that basically means combining high-level planning and behavior, that type of intelligence, with the motion intelligence and intelligent reactions that we talked about a bit earlier. So Google DeepMind just announced Gemini 2.0 and Gemini Robotics, right? And this is a framework that gives robots a multimodal world understanding, right? They can tell things apart in their environment. NVIDIA just talked about their new engine, Newton, which is supposed to make robots more expressive, and also have elements to teach robots how to handle complex tasks with greater precision. Also giving robots more senses, right? So the sense of touch, and combining that with dexterity. Sanctuary AI in Vancouver is a company working on that. So I'll stop there, but there's so much more happening with foundation models and cloud-based robot coordination.
And as you're saying, it's happening very fast, but it's not happening without aches and pains.
Absolutely. I mean, even just daily things like, let's generate all our code and hyper-accelerate software development. But wait a second, when that code isn't right, who's still going to have the skill to understand, interpret, and fix, right, what the AI tried to generate and didn't quite work, because either it just didn't have some new paradigm in its data yet, or the person explaining, right, what it should do didn't explain the requirements or goals well, whatever that may be, right? So I think this is going to be this paradox, right, of how do we embrace this without losing the fundamental knowledge to be able to interact with it in a safe and productive way.
Dalith, I really want to hear your thoughts on this. So as Robert is saying, things are speeding up. They're getting faster and faster, more and more complex. There are huge opportunities out there, but it takes a lot of work to actually get things done and to get them to work properly.
Well, with the speed of adoption and first of all, the development and adoption, it's, I think, pretty difficult for a lot of people to react on that. To me, what is much more important besides the development on the technology side is, in my opinion, we will move from a knowledge-based economy to a skill-based economy. And Robert just mentioned, you have to have people who have the expertise, the experience, and the skills to build on those algorithms and the products that we're having. So this is one of the things that goes into leadership, that goes into literacy, and goes especially into building those bridges between the tech world and the business world.
How do you see the potential of this being achieved here in Switzerland? Where does Switzerland stand now? And what do you see the role that Switzerland, the Swiss market, the Swiss economy gets to play in this regard in the future?
What we are especially known for is that we're belonging to the most innovative countries worldwide. Where I see Switzerland lacking behind, and I would wish that we will do more steps towards, is to monetize those innovations. So really to implement those great ideas our startups and our companies have. And there is a lot of AI plug and play, let's put it that way, things that you can just, use it even for SMEs, whether it's in bookkeeping or in the HR, in procurement, process optimization. To me, it's very important that we focus on those small steps, and that we find ways how we can stabilize, on one hand, our SMEs and also make them global competitive.
Robert, so Dalith is saying there's a lot of innovation, huge potential in Switzerland, but we cannot actually get things fully done. We cannot finance the projects. We cannot implement all that innovation that is being made in Switzerland. How do you see this? Where does Switzerland stand from your perspective? Where is Switzerland lagging behind? Where does Switzerland need to catch up?
Mm-hmm. So as a Swiss Canadian, I'm still very, very bullish on Switzerland. And yet I unfortunately agree very much with Dalith. So we rank very high thanks to ETH and EPFL in AI publications and research. But that transfer into real-world application is still quite difficult. We're a deep tech nation. That's an established phrase here. And I've also experienced multiple times in various companies, not only ANYbotics firsthand, right, that it then takes investors and support from outside of Switzerland to really make things happen at a later stage in company, especially when you need that heavy capital investment, whether it's building an AI model or a robot or whatever that may be. I quite like right now the regulatory landscape from Switzerland in the sense that it's a little bit open, even though I do like some things in the EU AI Act. That being said, I would wish for a little bit more guidance, so not top-down regulation, but a guidance and strategy a little bit as to where Switzerland wants to go on topics of AI. So I think those are a few of the points in my mind where I think Switzerland can become stronger. And as we've talked about ANYbotics a lot today, and I've recently now moved on from ANYbotics, I'm hoping that in my next step, I'm going to play a key role somehow in shaping some of the elements I've just mentioned for Switzerland, with Switzerland, to make Switzerland stronger in the adoption of AI.
And of course, we're crossing our fingers for you, Robert MacKenzie, former CPO and CTO of ANYbotics. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you very much for the questions and exciting conversation.
And Dalith Steiger-Gablinger, my co-host, for reflections and her perspective on the Swiss AI landscape. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, and thanks, Robert.
And to all of you, thank you for listening. I'm Stefan Lendy, and this has been AI Talk. Follow us online at aipodcast.ch or follow us on LinkedIn. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
AI Talk is produced by Newbury Media and Swiss Cognitive and supported by Innovation Zurich and Swiss ICT.
Want to discover why Zurich is one of Europe's leading innovation hubs? Visit innovation.zurich, your gateway to Zurich's vibrant innovation scene. Meet the people and ideas shaping the future and see why the canton of Zurich is a top location for tech, science, and entrepreneurship in Europe.